Well, hello, hello. This is Peaceful Perspectives, a mother and daughter discussion. This is a space where a mother and daughter, us, we discuss family, faith, and life, and we post a video every couple of months. I am Chanel Dupree, a strategic connector with deep Midwestern roots. I'm a mother of four, a wife, a lawyer, a social service administrator, an author, and a person who enjoys reading and learning. I am joined by my dear mother, Elaine. So she is an expert listener, always searching for understanding to enrich those around her. She adores her family. She is a wife of over 40 years, a mother of three, a grandmother of 10. She has years of experience as a business owner. She is a licensed master barber. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. And she just completed a 40-year-old goal of obtaining just a couple of college degrees. And we're so proud of her. Welcome to everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Yes.
Mom, so last time we discussed praying for our children, and we talked about intercessory prayer and just the importance of praying for what you want to see in the future, right? We know that life and death are in the power of the tongue, and so we have responsibility to speak life over our children, to pray it, and then to begin thanking God in advance for what we may not see in the moment. And so, anything that you want to add from our discussion a couple of months ago?
Not really. Again, I just want to encourage you that if, first of all, to not become discouraged, because usually when you start praying and you start touching the heart of God, it makes everybody around you angry, especially the enemy. And so I would just encourage you, if it looks like on the outside is getting worse, it's not. It just means that God is just stirring up some stuff, okay, just on your behalf. And so I'm encouraging you to continue to pray. If you find yourself getting a little weak or a little bit, get somebody with you. Get somebody that's strong or that's been through it, and let them become your prayer partner to encourage you as you journey on.
Amen. Be not weary in well doing, for in due season, if you think not, shall reap what you sow. Amen. So today we are going to be talking about mother and daughter relationships.
Yeah.
So I was seeing some things online where sometimes women feel like the boys are the favorite, that they are kind of left to figure things out, and the boys are coddled, and the boys are just cared for more, or maybe provided that extra attention, or whatever it may look like. And so I reached out to you, Mom, and just said, let's have a conversation about this. And so just really wanting to, in the end, right, foster and understand that mom and daughters can have a beautiful relationship. It can
Yeah.
be beautiful, and it's so special, so
Yeah.
special.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
that
are
is
your
true.
thoughts?
But first, before we even get started with this, my daughter, before we got on camera, she said, "What do you have on, Mom?" And I did. She was all up in my stuff. I'm like, "Why did she ask about my shirt?" But I put it on because I am so beyond proud of you, girl. Because I just happened to have a copy of your book. How you put it in the
Yay.
screen?
The
Okay.
good job, Mom. Good
Yeah, Dad,
job.
you did. Yay! Okay, and then I got a shirt see, and I'm kissing you. Hold on, see, that's kissing you.
The connection that you just made. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you, dearest mother of mine.
Proud of you. Listen, any mother would be proud of their daughter if she did anything that she set her heart to and was a success in it. And that's all I'm doing. I'm doing what any mother would do. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's start with mother-daughter. I'm going to come at it from a totally different angle. Okay, I'm going to ask you right now, and people need to know that this is real. Where am I supposed to be looking? Am I supposed to be looking at myself, or up at the camera, or over at you? I'm so
Look at the camera.
okay.
Yeah, look at the camera. But it's okay if you look at me. Like, it's fine. It's
Oh,
fine.
thank you. I already look at you.
Okay.
But when we decided on, well, when Chanel came to me with this topic, I said to myself, yeah, I'll talk about mother daughter. That's no problem. But then it was like a couple months ago, I started meditating on it.
Mm,
And I realized, oh gosh, it's a lot. We could be complete in each other. We could be complicated. And then all the in betweens. And so I started thinking about my my life and my mothers and daughters in my life. And I was able to go back 5 generations, well, 5 generations total. Okay.
mm,
And then I started meditating on each generation and how it affected me. And so I know I have 5 generations, and I'm going to try my best to reference them through me. Okay. So there's my great grandmother to my grandmother to my mother, and me and you, Chanel, and then Chanel, you and your daughters, my
mhm,
granddaughters. Okay. Those are the generations that I know well. Of course, I know my grandmother and my mom, me and mom, you and yours and ours better than I know my great grandmother and my grandmother. But I think it's important to talk about that relationship because that's kind of like where I began to see the dysfunction. Okay.
mm,
And then that's where I began to, let's start there. So, my great grandmother actually raised my mother. My great grandmother loved my mother. My mother loved her grandmother. My mother treated her grandmother like that was her mama because she raised her. Okay. And I asked for a long time, why didn't Big Mama was my grandmother? Okay. Why didn't Big Mama raise you, Mom? I'm mad about that. Why? How come she didn't raise you? And back then, when you had mental illnesses and you were struggling, that was such a taboo. That just wasn't talked about. So mom just kind of brushed it over and basically just said, "Oh, your grandmother wasn't ready at the time," and all that other kind of stuff. I said, "Okay." So we would go. My great grandmother, my mother, and my grandmother grew up in Texas by way of Louisiana by way of Texas. So every summer we lived in Nebraska. So every summer, me, mom, and the family would go visit, my great grandmother. We'd go visit her every summer. My great grandmother treated me with such kindness.
mm,
She loved herself some lady. She loved me. And I recognized it then and I didn't. But she really loved me. And in
mm,
hindsight, I know why she did because she loved my mother, which was her granddaughter. She raised her. So I get the connection. You love who they love. But she treated me, she was the first person, my great grandmother was the first person that I wrote letters to. I was 7, 8 years old. I had about 3 words on the page because I figured she was old and I was just learning how to write. So I'd go, dear, had these big letters on the paper, you know, 10 papers. All I basically was saying, dear, how you doing, grandma? Love you, that kind of stuff. But it meant so much to me. And I wish I could have saved those letters.
mm,
So just hear what I'm saying. If things are happening now like that, and you think, oh, you'll remember, you won't. Save those papers, save those letters, because your next generation will absolutely enjoy it. So we were right back and forth, and she sent me gifts. She didn't send my brothers nothing. Okay, she sent me
wow.
all the gifts. So I had a beautiful relationship with her. I had beautiful thoughts about her. But my great grandmother and my grandmother's relationship looked a little strained. And I
Mm,
suspect now it's because Big Mama didn't raise her daughter. So their relationship was a little strained. Okay. So I'm just gonna put a pin there. Well, and then Big Mama loved her mother though. Big
mm,
Mama loved her mother. So my great grandmother. So Big Mama, my grandmother loved her, my great grandmother. Okay.
Yeah.
Loved her. Okay. And I saw that almost to the point where it looked like she was all trying to please her. And it was quite never good enough. Like I almost got the impression that, and I know this is not true, but it looked like on the outside she loved mom and me better than she loved Big Mama,
Mm.
her own daughter. That's how it looked. Okay. All right.
Wow.
That's first dysfunction. Okay. So now let's fast forward. So now because my mother was now raised by her mother, my grandmother, you would think that my mother would be angry. And I think for a little bit she was. So my mother, like I said, they all lived in Texas. Okay. My mother followed my dad to Nebraska back in the 60s or 50s. It was a railroad and it was jobs for African Americans. And so my dad followed his dad, and mom, of course, came with my dad, to Nebraska, left her grandmother and her mother in Texas, right?
Mhm.
Originally. So she was pregnant with me, she had me, and then all of a sudden, my grandmother decides, oh, I just got to be with Tracy. That's my mother. I just got to be with her. And so I'm asking all these questions years later, like, how come Big Mama just didn't stay in Texas? That's where she lived. How come she followed you here? I mean, it's not like y'all had a relationship. So why did she follow you here? And so mom, with her kind self, basically said, well, she called her my dear. She said, well, she needed help and all this other stuff. And so I personally did.
So let me say this. So they had a relationship. It just wasn't what you would see as the typical mother-daughter relationship,
Mm-mm,
right?
mm-mm.
But it was a relationship.
It was a relationship. It was a relationship. Now that I think about it, it was a
Mhm.
relationship that said my mother was actually the mother of her mother. you
Right.
know, Big
Mhm.
Mom became the child and mom was the mother. Okay. I didn't
Gotcha.
like that because I felt that my grandmother was using my mother.
Gotcha.
Okay. So when mom and dad moved to Nebraska, and then Big Mama decides to follow about a year or so later, I'm like, why?
Mhm.
Why are you doing that? Well, I knew why. We found out why. Um, my grandmother just needed a whole lot. She needed a whole lot, and so my mother became my grandmother's caretaker. She
Mhm.
took care of her. My grandmother was very abusive, and that's just it. Just is. She just was. Now remember, she had some mental illnesses going on, and back then you just did not talk about it.
Right.
So my grandmother would self-medicate. And
Mm.
so when she self-medicate, the things that she self-medicated with affected her. And unfortunately, us daughters, we'll love our mamas, whether they're bad, good, indifferent, it doesn't matter. And so my mother loved her mother unconditionally. So I saw that dynamic. And instead of my mother becoming angry, I would, because it's like, that's my
Mm.
mama. And
Gotcha.
you don't get to do all that stuff to my mama. So that's kind of like how that was. Now, you would think because my mother was raised by her grandmother and not by her mama, that she would in turn not do a good job with her children. But my
Hmm.
mother was a fantastic mother.
Yes.
Yes, she was partial to boys, very much so. But my mom made sure I had everything I needed uh, while I was growing up, and also preparing me as a woman.
Mm.
Okay. My mom, I mean, I knew how to figure out bills, and I definitely knew how to clean a house, and I knew how to cook. I didn't like cooking, but she did teach me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she taught me. Mom gave me the best she had as a mother.
Yeah.
And she was a fantastic grandmother. We don't even talk about
Come
that.
on now. Come on, Nana.
Okay.
That's what
Yeah.
we called
She
her.
Mom
Our
diggity
Nana.
bomb.
Yeah.
Okay. So mom could have used the excuse, well, you know what? They didn't do it for me. My mama didn't do it for me, make it work for you. She did. Mom was not, she was not a jealous mother. She just wanted the best for me. Now, her biggest fear, found out later, was that because I was the only one that her and dad had, excuse me, because we had two brothers. I have two brothers, and they were by mom and dad. My dad was a different dad. Okay. And mom just wanted to make sure that in case something happened to her, that I was able to basically fend for myself. Kind of. That was her thinking back in the 60s and 70s, not knowing
Mm.
that I had the best daddy ever. My dad is still taking care of me. He calls me on Mother's Day and say Happy Mother's Day. He okay, I'm diverted. That's Father's Day
Come
stuff.
on, Grandpa.
But my mother could have made up the excuse that she did not have a role model for a mother. Now you would say, well, she had her grandmother. Now I forgot to tell you this. Um, her grandmother had 12 other kids. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. And her grandmother didn't only raise mom, but she raised a couple other grandkids. And the two grandkids that she did raise became kind of like siblings to her. But their mother, which was my great grandmother's daughter, died. Her and her husband died in a car accident back in the 50s. Yeah, right. So my great grandmother was the bomb diggity bomb. Okay, 12 kids or 13, and then she raised three for sure. I know for a fact, three kids from here to grown ups. So my grandmother became mom's all in all. When my grandmother passed away, hindsight, because my mother also was trying to seek her mother's approval, and my grandmother never gave it to her ever. And that spirit my grandmother tried to put on to me. So, for instance, and I'm just being honest with y'all because I know y'all going through some stuff. Some of y'all are, and maybe worse. But I would walk into a room. Now, mind you, I was like 10th, 11th grade. I would walk into the room. Big Mama would be sitting there. Now, mind you, she was not a size 2. And she may not have even been a size 22. She was upwards, okay? But I would walk into a room and she would go, Lady, you putting on some weight. You getting fat just like your mama. So mom would just kind of go like, no, my dear, don't say that. I'm like, baby mama, look at you. I would say it nicely, but I'm like, well, you're not gonna talk about my mama. I don't care what you say about me. So that was the relationship us all three had. That was just the real of it. So I actually got the positive and the negative side of having close females in your family, one being very, very toxic and the other one being totally opposite. I had both of them in my
mm,
life. And so I could have chose which way to go with you. Okay. I kind of liked how my mother was acting. I liked how she treated me and I liked how I felt. Someone asked me a while ago, they said, what was it about your great grandmother that you loved? I said, I cannot remember one real conversation with her, but I
mm,
can tell you how she made me feel. She made me feel special. She made me feel loved. She made me feel like this dark skin was the bomb diggity bomb. She had moles all over her face. You know what I said? I want those when I get older. I got them. Y'all see them? Okay. But I wear them proudly. Okay. Because of my great grandmother set that tone for me. So back to my mother and my grandmother's relationship. So that's the type of relationship they had. Totally dysfunctional. Mom did the very best she could. Big Mama, because of her illness, did the best that she could. I was with my grandmother when she took her last breath. It was a different feel from when I was with my mother and she took her last breath. When Big Mama took her last breath, my mind immediately went to my mother and how she was going to react. When my mother took her last breath, I almost took mine. It was just so different. And I didn't think about any of this until I started thinking about mother daughters relationships.
mm,
So, with that, because my mother was very secretive, I didn't know she was grieving her mother so deeply. I didn't realize it. And she was. Um, I'm just going to put a pin there. She did. So the relationship between me and my mother. Now, my mother, I like to call her was nice, nasty, but sweet. And I was a little bit more vocal with my stuff. And so I knew that there were certain things that made mom cringe, like, oh my God, girl, you got to say everything that's on your mind. I wasn't. That was the nice part, mom. But I love and still do love my mother. We had a great relationship. My mom taught me my first everything. Okay. It was positive. I thank God that it was positive because I would be who I am today and I would have been able to pour into my daughter and my granddaughters the way I should have if my mom hadn't been. And we're going to talk about if you did not have that kind of mother, okay? Because God is awesome in what he does. He really is. And so okay. So me and my mom's relationship was cool. You know, she was always trying to make sure that I had everything that I needed, that I was able to provide, that was survive, and I was able to do everything that I needed to do. And so I really appreciated that. So that when I had my daughter, which was you, um, it seemed natural to love you, to embrace you, to to want to do the best by you, to want to do everything I could for you to make sure that you had a perfect start. Now I look back and realize I missed it here and I missed it there and I missed it there with you, you know, but I thank God that there were people in your life, hopefully, that kind of filled in the gap or that you just kind of got it. Maybe you learned it on the streets. I don't know.
Well, I think that, but well, let me just say this. I do think that that can be that can be tormenting to try to perform perfectly in
Yeah.
any relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And because no one will get it all right, right?
Mm-mm.
No one is going to do it all perfectly. And so,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because
yeah,
we live in imperfect world. We're imperfect. And I get all of
yeah,
that. That's why I can talk about it, smile,
yeah.
laugh, and say, you know,
Hmm.
you pick up what I messed up at, but I promise you, your daughter's gonna find where you missed it at too. And then it's just life. It's just a circle of life. As long
Yeah.
as in the end they come back and tell you, you know, mommy, you were a great mama. You did a good job. Have you done that yet, Chanel?
I feel like I did in my 20s. I was like, oh, Lord, great job, mom. Great job.
You do a whole lot, huh? And all we're talking about is just the mother-daughter
Yep.
relationship.
Yep.
That's all we're talking about. So because of the mother I had, then it was easy for me to be the mother that I felt that Chanel needed. And then as I look at Chanel's relationship with her daughters, I just think it's just adorable. And your daughters, my granddaughters, are so opposite end of each other. It is so funny. They're like day and night. And so you can't parent the same way with both of them. You just
Yeah.
can't. One may fall apart if you do it. The other one may go, okay, fine. You know,
Yes.
the other one may run over you if you do too lightly. And the other one may go, this is just perfect. You know,
Yep.
so
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? And so
Yes.
it's just it's a balance when it comes to your daughters. You have to fill them out. Now, I can't speak to having more than one daughter. Okay. I can only speak to having just one daughter. And I don't mean the word just like that's not enough, but I can only speak to having one daughter. And it was easy for me to pour all that girly stuff into you. The boys could have cared less. You just caught on. We just had a connection. That's what mother and daughter's relationships should be, where you should be able to connect with each other. Sometimes just look at each other and just kind of know. You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yeah. So,
Okay. But I do feel like um, you don't nag. You know
mhm,
what I mean? Like you
yeah,
don't and sometimes when I'm, talking to the girls or when they're telling me something and I'm cringing on the inside,
yeah,
like I want for them to be able to talk to me, but at the same time I need to tell them, right? The thing that they need to do, especially at the age that they're at. And I know it'll just continue to progress, but I find that struggle of like wanting to wanting to make sure that they are continuing to be open, but then balancing that with, okay, so let's talk about how this needs to look, or how, what's safe, or what's, X, Y, and Z. So
Yeah. There is
yeah,
a way to do that. Let's see if I can give you an example. Granddaughter. Okay. I boiled some eggs for her this morning. I worked hard because 6:30 is early to be boiling eggs for anyone.
that's
So I
true.
boiled her 3 eggs and she ate one and threw away the two. So my mind was like, how you just gonna throw away my heart? First of all, you didn't pay for nothing. And then you didn't even work for it. So that's what I want to say. She homesick today. So I said, let me readjust my thoughts in my face. Okay, so let me calm down. And so this is what I told her. I said, sweetheart, I love when you come to me and want me to boil your eggs because you said I boiled them better than anyone. And I thank you for that, sweetheart. So the next time, though, if you get full, I need for you to save it for later because I may have wanted some, or maybe your brothers want some, or your sister. So just save it the next time, okay? But otherwise, you come to me anytime for some boiled eggs, okay, sweetheart? And she said, okay, Mimi. And then went on, okay? So
Mm,
it's really in the reflection, or is that the reflection in your voice and your
yeah.
expression? You have to bring
Mm,
it down because our daughters can read us like books, okay? And so
hmm.
you have to bring it down and in and go, sweetheart. And then sometimes that may not be the right time to talk to them. You may need to do it at another time. You understand what I'm saying? So what I would
Hmm.
do is just ask the Holy Spirit to lead and guide you on when to talk and how to talk. I do that often,
No,
often.
that's, yeah,
Okay.
that's good. Thank you. Wisdom.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to shift. Okay. And so I'm going to read my notes over here because it's not like I had, like I said, it's not like I had a perfect childhood, my a perfect mother-daughter relationship, but because I am, in the field I am, and people come to me with their questions and their concerns when it comes to their mother, and the mothers come to me with concerns with their daughter. There's just some things that I would like to share with you. First, as a mother, it is very, 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 very important that you allow your daughters to express their feelings, starting at a young age. I'm going to just go ahead and say daughters and granddaughters because nowadays us grandmamas, we got our granddaughters too, and we can influence in their lives too. And so, but it's very important that you allow that your daughter and granddaughter to express themselves fully. Because if they're not able, if they don't feel safe with that first female role model in their entire life to express themselves, I promise you they won't do it. Okay. Or if they do it, it's going to explode and it's going to look like she got an attitude and she crazy and all you seeing is just hurt. Okay. So it's important that you allow your daughter slash granddaughter to express themselves fully because now it'll be your job to, if they go left or go right, it'll be your job to calmly teach them that, baby, I understand how you feeling. But, you don't have to say all the nice words though. But I get what you're trying to say. Okay. Because you're going to be their first teacher. Okay. That's number one. Number two, every time, every day, all the time, at some point, you tell your daughter, Chanel, I think you are beautiful. No, you really are, for real. Okay, I divert. But you need to tell your daughter they're beautiful. Daddies need to especially tell their daughters, but mama, you need to too. You need to
Yeah.
always tell your daughter she's beautiful, her hair is beautiful, her shape is beautiful. And as mothers, that is our job to do. It is our job. If our daughters are feeling some kind of way about their bodies, it is our job as mothers to make sure they don't. And, that's all I'm gonna say about that. Your body, you teach your daughter that her body deserves respect. Okay. No one is allowed to put their hands on her in any shape, form, or fashion, regardless of whatever excuse that person will try and give. Oh, I did it because you deserve it. Or I did it because what happened. No, no, and no, no, no. That's all no's. Okay. Never allowed to have anyone put hands on you. You're too special. You're too beautiful for that to happen. Also teach your daughters that not all relationships will last, because we as women will love hard. And who we love. But sometimes those relationships may not last. It doesn't mean that you are an inferior person, it does not mean that you are a bad person. It just means that that was a season for that relationship, and now be open for others. Okay.
Yep.
And another thing, it is okay to make mistakes. Teach your daughter that they don't have to be perfect in every single thing that they do. You're going to mess up, you're going to make mistakes. It doesn't make you less of who you are. I still love you unconditionally. If people stop loving you, what does that have to do with our relationship? Okay.
Yep.
And then lastly, mamas, if you have done something to hurt your daughter and you know it, or they have told you, it is your responsibility to make it right.
Mm,
Ask God to lead and guide you, but you need to make it right. It
yeah.
is your responsibility.
Yeah. I think that that is, just that last one, that is that whenever you see that dynamic where probably an adult child or even a child is telling their mom or a parent how they've been hurt,
Yeah,
and the parent responds in a way that is, well, that didn't really happen, or you shouldn't feel like that, or I didn't do that, instead of just working to mend that hurt.
yeah,
Like whenever you see that dynamic, it's just it's heartbreaking because
it
you're
is.
like, oof, all that
It
child
is.
wants is for you to say, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Let's build from this,
Yeah,
and go from there. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
I
love
agree.
those.
I agree totally. So what I would say, if you have a mother that has not yet come to it, or she hasn't and maybe she's gone on, then you need to seek help. And then also you need to look at if God has already put someone in your life that's a
Mm,
female version, and you're just pushing them aside because you're so busy looking at your mother over here who's not doing what you feel they should do. So number one, look at who God has around you, that female role model, positive female role model. And then number two, sometimes you're gonna just have to forgive. You're gonna have to, and just accept your mother for who she is and where she is. Now that don't mean you don't protect yourself. You
yeah.
understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
But you protect you're gonna have to accept her in order for you to move on. And you
Yeah.
know you've moved on if every time you talk is no longer about her. That's how you know. That's one of the great signs that you know.
Yeah, I talk about forgiveness and trust, and how, as a child of God, forgiveness is not a choice. It is something that we are mandated to do so that Christ will forgive us. But
Mhm.
trust is something completely different.
It is.
Trust in a relationship and opening yourself up and all the things. That's something that has to be earned, and it's
It
something
does.
that has to be. The work has to be done by both folks,
It
and so
does.
understanding that just in any relationship you
Mhm.
have a responsibility to forgive, but that doesn't mean that you have a responsibility to trust. And that
That's right.
doesn't mean you have a responsibility to open yourself up to continuously being hurt when someone has not shown themselves trustworthy. Well, what I also love is when we talked about this earlier, but just perfection, how and you think about the scripture when it talks about how if you judge, you'll be judged, and maybe we're expecting perfection from our daughters because that's how we've been operating. Like we've been trying to be perfect, and that's how we've been showing up. And then when our daughters, or whomever, but we're talking
Mhm.
about daughters today, don't meet that impossible standard, we react in a way that is, you know, uh, unhealthy and unhelpful for anyone.
Yeah.
And so, I think that it's just a good reminder of you shouldn't be expecting perfection from your daughters, and you shouldn't be expecting perfection from yourself. You're not going to do things perfect all the time. So give yourself grace every day, every day, every day, and then show that same grace that you're giving yourself.
I agree. That I totally agree. I think that is a great way to close this. Is that they're human, and so are you. Okay. Have a conversation if you need to have a conversation. If you had a mom that you have no complaints about, then you better go thank her. Okay.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you.
You welcome. You you welcome.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, thank you. And so you go thank the mama that you have no complaints with, and you go pray for the mama that you do have complaints with, and also look for the females in your life that are filling that gap because
There you
God
go.
always provides it.
There you go. That's
Yes.
it.
Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right.
Amen.
Well, thank you all for listening, and we pray that you receive some helpful information. Be blessed.